It was a quiet day in a small courtroom, but something was about to happen that no one would forget. Dolly Parton, the country music legend, had stepped into this room, not as a singer, but as a witness. She wasn't there to sing or perform. She was there to give her testimony on an important matter. The courtroom was filled with lawyers, journalists, and people eager to see what Dolly had to say. Most of them knew her as a superstar, a woman who'd built a massive career with her voice and her heart. But here in this setting, they didn't care about her fame, they just wanted the truth. The judge, a man known for being strict, didn't seem impressed by Dolly's celebrity. He was focused on the case at hand, and at first it seemed like he didn't even care who she was. His eyes were cold as he looked over the room, ready to move forward. But Dolly was about to teach him something he'd never forget. Her calm and steady presence filled the room. No one knew what she would say, but everyone was about to find out. She was about to speak up, and when she did, things in that courtroom would never be the same. As Dolly Parton took the stand, the judge gave her a quick glance. He didn't seem impressed. To him, she was just another witness, another person who had to speak in front of the court. But Dolly was no ordinary witness. The judge, with his sharp eyes and serious face, leaned forward in his chair. His voice was firm as he addressed her. "Miss Parton," he began, his tone almost mocking, "I assume you're here to give us your thoughts on this matter, but I doubt your experience in this courtroom." The words hung in the air. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to Dolly. She wasn't a lawyer or a judge, she wasn't even an expert in the case at hand. She was just Dolly, the country music star. The judge continued with a smug smile. "I hope you're ready to give us something useful, Miss Parton. I'm sure you're busy with your music and business, but here we deal with facts, not songs." Some people in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably. Dolly wasn't the kind of person who let things slide, but she remained calm. Her face showed no anger, no frustration. It was as if the judge's words didn't even touch her. She had been through much worse in her life and career, but the judge didn't know that. He saw a famous woman and assumed that fame didn't come with wisdom or experience. He made the mistake of thinking her success was all about her looks or her voice, not realizing that Dolly Parton was one of the sharpest, most intelligent people in the room. The judge, still smiling, raised an eyebrow, waiting for Dolly to respond. He probably expected her to be thrown off balance. But he was about to learn a very important lesson. Dolly Parton took a deep breath and smiled. Her eyes were calm, but there was a certain spark in them. She wasn't bothered by the judge's words. In fact, she seemed almost amused by his attitude. "Your Honor," she began, her voice soft but steady. "I understand that you're used to hearing from people who are experts in this field. But I'm not here to impress you with big words or fancy legal terms. I'm just here to tell you what I know." Her words hung in the air for a moment. The judge sat up straighter, clearly surprised that she wasn't rattled by his earlier comments. The rest of the room seemed to lean in, curious to hear what she would say next. "I may not be a lawyer," Dolly continued, "but I've spent my life in the public eye. I've built my career on trust, hard work, and the truth. People listen to me because they know I'm genuine." The judge raised an eyebrow, but didn't interrupt. Dolly paused for a second, then added, "I may not know the law like you do, but I know people. I know what it's like to work hard, to face challenges, and to stand up for what's right." Her words were simple, but they carried a weight. She wasn't trying to prove herself, she was just telling her truth. The judge's dismissive attitude started to fade as he listened more carefully. The courtroom was still, even the lawyers were paying attention now. Dolly wasn't like other witnesses. She didn't need to show off her intelligence, or argue in circles. She simply spoke from the heart, with the kind of wisdom that only comes from a lifetime of experience. And she wasn't finished yet. There was more to come. As Dolly spoke, her voice grew stronger. She wasn't just defending herself, or even trying to explain her point. She was about to make a statement that would leave everyone in the room stunned. "I've learned in life," Dolly continued, "that there's no place for pride when you're trying to help others. It's about respect. Respect for people, respect for the truth, and respect for what's right. And let me tell you, Your Honor, the truth is often not what we expect." There was a pause. The judge sat back in his chair, clearly taken aback. Dolly had a way of speaking that made you think twice, and the weight of her words seemed to hang in the air. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. She wasn't trying to teach him a lesson, but somehow, that's exactly what was happening. The courtroom felt different now. People were no longer just watching, they were listening. Dolly wasn't just another famous person making a statement, she was a force. And it was clear the judge was starting to realize this. But Dolly wasn't done. She leaned forward slightly, as if she had one more thing to say. You see, Your Honor, in my life I've met people from all walks of life. I've sat with millionaires, and I've sat with people who had nothing. And I can tell you one thing for sure, people are people. And no matter where you come from, or how much you have, the truth is always the truth. The judge shifted in his seat, clearly uneasy. He'd made a mistake, he'd underestimated Dolly. He'd thought that because she was a famous singer and businesswoman, she wouldn't have the depth of understanding or experience that was needed for this case. But he was wrong. Dolly had seen the world, and her wisdom wasn't something you could ignore. The room was silent. The atmosphere had completely changed. People were no longer focused on the case at hand, they were focused on Dolly. She had everyone's attention now, and the judge's smug smile from earlier had faded away. His expression was now a mix of confusion and something else, regret. Dolly's calm and measured response had shaken him, and it was clear to everyone in the room that the balance of power had shifted. For a moment there was only silence. Then Dolly added softly, I may not have all the answers, but I do know this: we all deserve to be treated with respect, no matter who we are. It was a quiet statement, but it had a thunderous impact. The judge knew he'd just been schooled, and the people in the courtroom knew that Dolly Parton wasn't just a star, she was a force to be reckoned with. The silence in the courtroom felt heavier now, as if the air itself had shifted. The judge, who had once been so confident, now seemed a little smaller. He cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure, but it was obvious that Dolly's words had taken him by surprise. For a moment he didn't speak, he just sat there. His eyes fixed on Dolly, as if trying to figure out how someone like her could have so much wisdom. His usual stern demeanor was gone, replaced by something else, regret. He quickly adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat again. I appreciate your insight, Miss Parton, he said. His voice a little quieter than before. The arrogance that had once filled his tone was now replaced with a genuine humility. You've given me something to think about. The change was noticeable. Dolly hadn't yelled or argued, she hadn't tried to make the judge look foolish. She had simply spoken the truth, and in doing so she had managed to make him see something he hadn't considered before. The room remained still as the judge fidgeted with some papers on his desk, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. He had misjudged her. He had thought Dolly's fame made her less credible, less serious. But now, he understood just how wrong he had been. The courtroom had been waiting for a powerful witness to speak, and Dolly had done just that. His eyes moved to the other people in the room. The lawyers, who had been waiting for him to strike down Dolly's words, now sat quietly, perhaps wondering if they had also underestimated her. Even they could see that the balance had shifted. Dolly's calm response, her strength in the face of mockery, had made a powerful impression, and while the judge might not have been thrilled about it, he couldn't deny that Dolly's words had made him rethink his own approach to the case. He looked at her again, this time with respect in his eyes. Miss Parton, I'm sure we can continue this discussion, he said, his voice softer, more measured. And I will take your words into account moving forward. It was a simple admission, but it was enough. The judge had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes it's not about who you are or what you've done, it's about how you carry yourself and how you speak the truth. The shift in the room was undeniable. Dolly had earned the respect she deserved, not with force, but with grace. And the judge, once so confident in his position, had just realized that he had underestimated her. Dolly Parton didn't gloat or smile in victory. She didn't need to. She had already made her point. She simply nodded at the judge, her calm demeanor still intact. She wasn't there to fight, or to make a scene. She was there to stand up for what she believed was right, with one final glance at the judge, she added, "Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to make sure the truth is heard. That's all." Her words were simple but powerful. The courtroom had felt the shift. The judge, once sure of himself, now had a new understanding of the woman sitting before him. Dolly wasn't just a famous face, she was someone who spoke from experience, from the heart, and that's what mattered most. The judge gave a slight nod, his respect for her growing. There was no need for further words. Dolly had made her stand, and she had done it with grace and strength. The room stayed quiet as Dolly stepped down from the witness stand. It wasn't a dramatic exit, but one that left an impression. She had proven that you don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes all it takes is speaking the truth with honesty and dignity. As she walked out of the courtroom, the eyes of everyone in the room followed her, knowing they had just witnessed something rare. Dolly Parton had made a lasting impact, not just with her music, but with her words. After Dolly left the witness stand, the atmosphere in the courtroom remained charged. The judge, who had initially mocked her, now sat in silence, his hands folded. He stared down at the papers in front of him, clearly reflecting on everything that had just happened. The lawyers exchanged quick glances, as if trying to make sense of what had just unfolded. They had expected Dolly to crumble under the judge's harsh remarks, to perhaps argue back with emotion or even walk out in frustration. Instead, she had stayed calm and composed, and it was clear to everyone that she had won the room's respect without ever raising her voice. The judge finally cleared his throat and straightened his tie. He wasn't the same person he had been before Dolly's testimony. His earlier sarcasm was gone, replaced by a quiet sense of humility. It seemed as though he had learned something important about his own biases, about the dangers of underestimating someone based on their appearance or their fame. "Let's proceed," the judge said, his voice softer now, as he turned back to the case. But there was a noticeable change in the way he addressed the proceedings. It was as if Dolly's words had reminded him of the core values of fairness and respect that should guide a courtroom. Outside the courtroom, Dolly's testimony quickly became the topic of conversation. News outlets began to report on her calm yet powerful stand. Social media exploded with support for Dolly, praising her not just for her fame, but for her wisdom and grace under pressure. People admired how she had taken what could have been a moment of humiliation and turned it into a statement of strength. Even the people who had been skeptical of her at the start began to see her in a new light. It wasn't just her music or her business empire that made her extraordinary, it was the way she carried herself, the way she never backed down when it mattered most. Inside the courtroom, the remaining testimonies continued, but the mood had shifted. The judge, though still focused on the case, now carried a quiet respect for Dolly that was impossible to ignore. His earlier mockery had turned into an understanding of what it truly meant to be heard, to be respected. Dolly's moment had changed the tone of the whole trial. It was clear now that she wasn't just a witness, she was someone whose words could make a difference. And for everyone in that room, the impact of her testimony would be remembered for a long time.